to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education. And I'm so excited that you guys are here. If you did not listen to the episode last week, it was so good with Tammin Sursock. We dove into all the ugly parts of motherhood, but she just has the most beautiful take on everything. And she's been through so much just from her childhood and then into motherhood. And she's so strong and just kind of embodies that thing that we need to as a motherhood community of just loving and supporting each other and knowing that all of our circumstances are different, but we need to support and love each other through them anyway. So it was just, she has such a powerful story and I had such an amazing time talking with her. So you guys should definitely go check that out. This week we have on Aida, known as the Non-Toxic Munchkin, and I'm so excited to talk with her or to share our interview with you guys because we just kind of dive into all the toxins in our lives, in our homes, things to look out for. Definitely follow her page for tips and advice. And when you think about, hey, I need to get rid of all the toxins in my life, there are certain things that might cost more money and some that don't. So I love that we dive into things that are free for you to do, that are super simple and easy to eliminate those toxins in your home. And it's literally dusting, vacuuming, and I can't think of the other one right now. Like basically dusting and vacuuming. Oh, and washing your hands with soap and water. And taking your shoes off at the door. So I guess there's 4. Those are 4 things that are cheap and easy and for everyone to do to eliminate toxins in their home. But we dive into some other ways, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. We didn't get to dive into some of the other topics that I would like to, just because I could have talked with her for 3 hours, and I know I only have your attention for so long. So we didn't. But like I said, definitely follow her page. And I'm going to share some of her information on the page as well from her page throughout this week. Just easy ways to eliminate toxins in your home. Toxins are something that I feel like I can get obsessed with and that I think about all the time. And just even last night, Vito was making fun of me because I'm like, we have to get all new shower curtains and all this stuff. And then I looked at it and we don't even have the shower curtains that have the toxins in it. But he's like, babe, it's okay. Relax. I'm like, Jovi's breathing this in. And I can get obsessed with it. And I also have to realize that there's only so much we can do. We're going to be exposed to different toxins throughout our lives. So yeah, I'm going to do what I can to try to control the intake that I have. But I also can't let it control my life because I can become that way. Even in my episode today, I get stressed out talking to her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to just burn my house down because it's full of toxins and I don't know what to do. And it's cold in Chicago, so it's not like I can just open my windows and air out my home. But thankfully, this next week, it's supposed to get 57 and all my windows are opening to get some fresh air flow through here. But yeah, she's just such a joy to talk to. And I'm so excited to have her on. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the episode. All right, everyone. I have Aida Garcia Toledo here, and I'm so excited to talk to her. I've been following her account for a long time. She's called the Non-Toxic Munchkin online, and I'm into that stuff. So I'm super excited to talk to her to dive a little bit deeper because I'm definitely far from an expert, and I'm so glad that she's sharing her time and wisdom with us. So thank you so much for being here.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me. So yes, I started Non-Toxic Munchkin over a decade ago, actually over 11 years ago. My oldest son just turned 11 last week. And like many of you, I discovered how important, or I started paying attention to environmental toxins when I was first pregnant. And the more I read about it, and the more overwhelmed I became, quite frankly. And I was really overwhelmed. And so I started writing everything down. And at the time, all my friends were getting pregnant. So they started asking me for tips. So I would just that's how it started as a blog. And prior to that, I'll mention that I used to be a journalist. I used to do investigative journalism. So, researching, I've always enjoyed it, which I know not everyone does, but I kind of like that deep research. And so anyway, I started Non-Toxic Munchkin, and my goal has always been to help mostly moms, kind of understand what non-toxic living is, kind of understand how to do it, why it's important, and most importantly, not to get overwhelmed. Because what I know that happens is that a lot of times we get overwhelmed and we just give up. We're like, oh, this is too much. There's chemicals everywhere. I'm done. Really non-toxic living, it's a lifestyle change. It's not like one of these like fad diets, like a quick detox. That's not how it should be. It should really be something that we slowly make, transition to, make small changes when we can. And that's really the key to really low tox living. It'll never be non-toxic living. So that's a little bit about me. And so now I have a consulting company where I work one-to-one with families. I also work with companies and help them also. There's certain companies who ask me to just help them make a safer product. And I also have my community on Instagram, which I love because that's where I get to work with a lot of moms, and every single day I get to talk to them. That's me.
That's so fun. All right, we'll be right back to this interview after this quick ad break. Are you looking to buy a home? The market is hot right now, and Homplete, they can help you get it right the first time. Homplete's focus is on guiding home buyers through the process by giving them the tools, educational content, and resources they need for free. Simply tell them what you're looking for in a home, and they will connect you to a local expert realtor to help you anywhere in the United States. Even better, when you finally purchase your home, they will throw in a 1-year home warranty for free to cover any needed repairs that might occur after you buy your home. Let the experts guide you through one of your biggest investment decisions. Visit homplete.com now. That's HOMEPLETE.com. Now back to the episode. Like you said, I feel like so many things are overwhelming, especially when it's your first time around. I feel like as you do it again, you kind of get more relaxed about things. Like, oh, the first kid survived it, so the second one's fine. But it is overwhelming. Like with anything, you're kind of bombarded with a bunch of different information. And, my daughter's 6 months, and when we were doing different sleep stuff, and I'm like, but if I don't nurture, like if I don't respond to her right away, she's going to have these abandonment issues, and like, I'm going to screw her up forever. And it's just like, like you think that everything you're doing is affecting them. But when it comes to toxins, those things do affect you, but you don't necessarily see the immediate repercussions of it.
That's right. Yeah. I think, so it's sometimes hard to understand how toxins work. The majority of them, so we're exposed to toxins every day. We'll start there. There's toxins in almost everything. And the focus really has to be on reducing the overall amount of toxins that we're exposed to, because the main concern tends to be when you're just getting a lot of small amounts of toxins throughout the day, throughout your whole life. Right? Or throughout 10 years, or 20 years or whatever. And then it kind of accumulates. So the key is to start reducing wherever you can reduce toxins. So, with children, first of all, I want to mention that like the most important times, there's certain times in our life, they're called windows of vulnerability. And this is when our bodies are just more vulnerable to chemicals. And this is when chemicals can mostly affect our health long-term, usually, which is what we're talking about. And it's the main windows of vulnerability are during pregnancy for the woman, during fetal development for the baby, early childhood, and then puberty, pre-puberty. Those are like the main windows. So during those times, you really want to just take extra care of yourself, kind of avoid products that have these extra toxins that we know that are harmful. Now, how do you identify that, right? Because like I said, it's everywhere, right? So what I like to do is that I kind of and you can let me know if this is how you want to do it today, but we can split it up by room or by, classes of toxins. But I feel like it's really easy to just like go around your house and, think first, okay, let's think about the kitchen. Okay, where are the most common toxins? Well, we drink water every day, right? We cook with water and we bathe with water. So water happens to be one of those like big sources of toxins. This is obviously going to depend where you live and where you source your water from. But there are chemicals in the United States, in our tap water, in most tap water, that, you shouldn't be drinking, basically, which is why water filtration is, I think, if you're going to make one investment in your house, you should focus on water filtration, especially if you have a child who's also, who drinks formula, because you're using water for that baby, right? But even so, like if you're breastfeeding, you're drinking the water. So it's still going to, pass to the baby. So a good quality water filter, that's one of the things that I think you should focus on. You have, the water can have everything from antibiotics to some waters have lead, most don't though. PFAS chemicals, which are chemicals that are found in like Teflon pans and in nonstick and stain resistance. Those chemicals, we're just learning that most water supplies in the United States have them, and there's no regulations for them because it's all new. People are just finding out that they're in the water. So the government hasn't regulated it. And there's even microplastics in our water. So if you were going to say, well, where do I start? I would start with the water. And this is one thing where I would buy or get the best water filter you can afford. And I don't want to scare everyone because I don't think that, not everything I'm going to talk about today is expensive. And I want to promise that there's a lot of things we can do that we can change, small changes. But I just want to start with the water because I think it's that important. I do think a good water filter is important. You can go with a reverse osmosis, like an under sink one. It doesn't have to be a whole house filter because those are a lot more expensive. Like Aquasana has carbon filters for under the sink that they start at $100. And you don't have to replace them that often. So compared to some even pitcher ones that aren't filtering out most of your water, it actually balances out in terms of price. So I think that's really important. And in the kitchen also, your cookware, I would personally always recommend, and once again, this is for new moms, you're cooking food for your babies when they start eating solids, when you're pregnant, you're eating every single day, you're cooking every single day. So those are the things that you should be focusing on. And in terms of pots and pans, I would, avoid the nonstick. Anything that says it has a nonstick coating, I would just avoid it. Most of them have a PFAS chemical or a member of the PFAS chemical family. It's not Teflon anymore because that's been phased out, but it's very similar chemicals.
Right.
So, you can start with like a cast iron. And once again, a cast iron, if you buy large cast irons, they're made in the United States. They're not that expensive and they will last you forever. And I'm talking 40, 50, 60 years. So it's a great investment. It doesn't cost that much up front. And it's a great switch that you could just make that will affect your health directly every single day.
This episode is sponsored by Apostrophe, a prescription skincare company for people that are ready to take their skincare needs seriously. The prescription acne treatments can work really well, but they can be really hard to get. You have to take time off work, stand in line, go see a doctor, then go to the pharmacy and wait for your prescription to be filled until Apostrophe. Apostrophe makes it easy to see a board-certified dermatologist online, and you'll get treated immediately, and your medications are delivered to your home. All you have to do is fill out Apostrophe's online questionnaire about your skin concerns and medical history, snap a few selfies, and your dermatologist will get back to you with a customized treatment plan tailored just for you. And the best part about Apostrophe is that they offer topical and oral medications, so you can treat your acne from the inside out and outside in. They also help you hit your other skincare goals like reducing redness, rosacea, wrinkles, and even dark spots. For me, I feel like I've been working on my skincare for a while now, and I really want to focus on the rosacea on my cheeks. I do have rosacea that's been there for a few years, and it just kind of seems like whatever I do just doesn't seem to kick it. So I actually just filled out my online questionnaire, snapped my photos in, and got connected with a dermatologist there. And I'm super excited to try them out because they just seem like such an awesome company, and I don't have time to like go see a dermatologist and go stand in line and do all of that. Plus, it's super affordable, which is important to me as well. So right now, you guys can get $15 off your first visit with a board-certified dermatologist at apostrophe.com/mamas and use the code MAMAS. This code is only available to our listeners. So to get started, go to apostrophe.com/mamas and click begin visit. Then use the code MAMAS to sign up and you'll get $15 off your dermatology visit. That's apostrophe apostrophe.com/mamas and use the code MAMAS to get your dermatology visit for $15 off. And we thank Apostrophe for sponsoring the podcast.
I have a quick question. So why is nonstick bad?
So that's a great question. Yeah. So most nonstick coatings contain a PFAS chemicals. There's thousands of PFAS chemicals, and it's kind of hard to explain. So PFAS. So the Teflons, because I always say Teflon because it's the one we all kind of know. We've heard of Teflon, right? So Teflon was one type of PFAS chemical, and that was banned. That was not banned, actually. I wish it would have been banned. It was the companies that made Teflon decided to stop using it because they found that it was linked to cancer, directly linked to cancer. So,
after a huge, long legal battle, they unmuted it. I only know this because I know it because I watched the Mark Ruffalo movie. What's it called?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's such a great movie though, and I would recommend it to everyone, especially if you have like a partner or a family member that doesn't really believe anything about non-toxic living. You show them this movie. It's starring Anne Hathaway and Mark Ruffalo, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, a Hollywood film. You don't even have to tell them it has to do anything with non-toxic living. And your eyes will be opened. I mean, it's a great movie. It's a true story. Do you have the name of it there or no?
I'm looking really quick. I'm trying to pull it up, but...
and it's a great educational tool.
Dark Waters.
Dark Waters, yes.
So
and then
good.
There's a documentary on the topic too that was amazing. But yeah, that's a little, it's a documentary. But movies and documentaries are a great way to get people on board also. But yeah, it wasn't because these chemical companies didn't stop using it because of the kindness of their heart or because they realized that it was bad for us. They were pretty much forced to. But the point is that they've replaced those chemicals with other chemicals. And it's like a family of chemicals where they're all very similar. They're all very similar, not only in how they work, they're nonstick, but also in what they do to our bodies. So they're endocrine disruptors. They mimic our hormones. They are linked to cancer. So in general, my rule is that if it has a nonstick coating, I avoid it. And the main reason is even if it isn't Teflon, if it hasn't been tested independently, which is the key thing here, you don't want the companies to tell you, oh, no, this is safe. No, you want an independent certification or something to tell you, yes, we've tested this. It's been on the market for 30 years and we can verify that it is safe. And because that doesn't exist for these PFAS chemicals that are being used as replacements, that's why I don't trust them. And I don't want to test this new technology or these new chemicals on my children and on my health. I don't want to be a guinea pig. So generally, I like to recommend to go back to the basics, like the things that we know that have been around for many years and we know are stable and will not harm our health. So in terms of the kitchen and cookware, that will be, cast iron, stainless steel. You can use, and just avoiding a glass also, I was going to say, because I would say that one of the biggest changes that isn't that hard to do either in the kitchen and in everyday life is transitioning away from plastics. So what's wrong with plastics? Plastics all have endocrine disrupting abilities. Okay. So there's different types of plastics. Some are very stable, meaning that the chemicals inside the plastic don't migrate out easily. And those are better plastics, we can say. And then there's plastics like PVC vinyl, which are not stable at all. And it's usually the softer, squishable plastics that smell like plastic, like think like shower curtain smell, that you definitely want to avoid. So what these plastics always have are endocrine disrupting chemicals. These are chemicals that mimic our hormones. A lot of them contain either BPA, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, or also BPS, BPF. So even things that say they are BPA free, they can still contain other similar chemicals that are in the same family as BPA. Same thing as I was talking about with the PFAS. It's this family of chemicals that affect our health. So you can take out one chemical and replace it with another, and it's not going to be better. It's still going to have the same effects. But the company can label it as BPA free, and you can think, people might think at the store, this must be safer because it's labeled BPA free. So once again, my general rule is when you can, just transition away from plastics. And I think new parents tend to be really intimidated by this in terms of they think, what kind of a little cup can I give my child, right? To drink water, to learn to drink water from, a sippy cup. If it's not plastic, it'll break, or plates. And there are safer alternatives. You have stainless steel cups are great. There's a lot of companies making stainless steel. Silicone is generally better also. It's similar to a plastic, but it's a lot more stable. It's not a plastic. And I don't like putting silicone in anywhere, exposing it to high heats. So I wouldn't put it in the dishwasher if you use the high heat drying setting or in the oven. But other than that, those are really good alternatives. You also have some good like wood ones and bamboo ones that can be great for kids too. And just, make sure like the water bottles aren't plastic, and food containers that you store your food in, or snack containers for your little ones. There's stainless steel, which is great for kids, and silicone. You also have those like silicone baggies that are kind of like, similar to a Ziploc bag. And those are great also for everything from storing food to home. So those are very easy switches you can do, and that really, you think they're small, but they really have a big impact because these are things that you're using every single day.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are going to take a quick break from this episode to talk about one of my favorite foods growing up as a child. And it was probably one of yours too, and that is cereal. Cereal was life growing up. And as I got older, I gave it up because it was full of junk and sugar, and I didn't find too much nutritional value in it anymore. But I found a brand that I love that actually has good things in it, and that is Magic Spoon. It doesn't have any sugar. It has 11 grams of protein and only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving. There's amazing flavors. I actually really love the blueberry flavor. To me, it kind of tastes like a blueberry muffin in a bowl. The frosted is amazing. The fruity flavor tastes just like Fruity Pebbles. It's so good. And the cocoa flavor tastes like Cocoa Puffs. So I really can't choose a favorite to tell you. But today I'm feeling fruity, so I'm going to go with fruity and blueberry. But they taste amazing. Vito and I love them. We kind of crushed the boxes, which is what you did as a kid too, right? But at least now I know that I'm eating a cereal that is keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. And I would love for you guys to relive your childhood in the best possible way, but get some nutritional value from it. So go to magicspoon.com/mamas to grab a variety pack, to try it today, and to be sure to use our promo code mamas at the checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, and it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That's magicspoon.com/mamas and use the code mamas to save $5 off. We thank Magic Spoon for sponsoring the podcast.
So before, when you were talking about water's a really big important one, I'm sure a lot of people listening were like, oh, well, we only use bottled water in our home. Or like with formula being like, oh, well, we use bottled water for formula. What's the problem with bottled water?
That's a great question. So bottled water, there's two things I don't like about bottled water. First of all, it's not regulated. So you're not really, a lot of the toxins aren't regulated, which means that they can also contain microplastics, PFAS, and other chemicals that you don't want to be ingesting. Additionally, most bottled water comes in plastic. And, there's the possibility and the probability, quite frankly, that those chemicals that I'm talking about are leaching into the water that you're drinking, because that water has been in that plastic bottle for a while before it comes to your home. And it probably has been in a warehouse or in a truck exposed to heat. And heat kind of accelerates the leaching of chemicals from plastic into the water. So, it's terrible for the environment, quite frankly. So bottled water isn't, unfortunately, the solution. That's why having a filter. Additionally, I'll also say, if you add up the cost of bottled water and compare it to the cost of a good filter, in the long run, the bottled water ends up being more expensive. So I just think, it's really a win-win-win for getting yourself a good filtration system at home, that the whole family can use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about how some things are endocrine disruptors, which means that they mimic your hormones. What's the problem with that?
So it depends on the endocrine disruptor. So there's different types, right? We have all kinds of different hormones, but we'll talk about phthalates because these are actually, they've been in the news recently. So phthalates are chemicals that are used in plastics to make them a little bit softer. And they're also used in fragrance products. So every time you smell something, a product that contains an artificial fragrance, that you look at the ingredients and it says fragrance, perfume, that will usually contain phthalates. It basically binds the fragrance to, the hand cream or the soap or whatever. Now, phthalates, what they do is that they mimic testosterone. And that can cause a whole lot of things, but it can cause real severe reproductive problems if you're a pregnant woman who's exposed to higher levels of phthalates during pregnancy, and you're pregnant, especially with boys, but also with girls. So it's been linked to things like early puberty. It's been linked to specific issues with like undescended testicles in baby boys. It's been linked to behavior problems. It's also recently, actually just last week, there was a new report that came out that's showing that the links to phthalates being a neurotoxin, it actually affects the brain development of kids. And it's been linked to increase learning disabilities, behavioral problems, and even autism. So they're bad. The way that these chemicals affect our bodies is serious enough that you start seeing effects, in early childhood sometimes if you were affected, if you were exposed to them during pregnancy. And I mean, they're not always extreme cases, but it does add on. It adds up. And I also want to say that the problem with phthalates specifically, and endocrine disruptors in general, is that so many of the chemicals that we're exposed to on a daily basis are endocrine disruptors. So, it's not only the chemicals in plastics, which are various different chemicals, but pesticides in food are also endocrine disruptors. And, the stain and the PFAS chemicals that can be in your cookware and can also be in our sofa, because it's the same chemicals that give fabrics the ability to be stain or water resistant. So if you have like a performance fabric sofa or upholstery, that probably contains PFAS. It's also in the dust that is all around our house, because a lot of home building material has phthalates. So the real problem is that we're just constantly exposed to these chemicals in very small amounts. Mm-hmm. So that is overwhelming because you're like, whoa, if it's constant and it's in everything, what do I do? But, going back to just by eliminating plastics, just by switching your cookware, just by taking your shoes off when you get home, because believe it or not, when you walk into your house with shoes, you bring in a lot of pesticides in addition to other stuff. You can bring in heavy metals depending, but if you went to the park and you walked on the grass, that grass was probably treated with pesticides. So when you bring it home, if you take your shoes off and leave them by the door, you're decreasing that. That's one less thing, one less source of exposure. Another thing that's great is like opening your windows. And these are things that are actually free, just opening your windows and also dusting very often, just making sure that like your sleep area doesn't have dust accumulating. That's a huge impact on reducing your exposure to toxins like these endocrine disruptors. So there are, you have these things like the water filter, which is expensive. You could get yourself an air filter, which is wonderful too. Those can be expensive too, yeah. But if you're not there yet, it took me a while to purchase, a big air filter for my house. Just opening your windows and dusting often. That's the cheaper alternative, and it's just as good. It's really, really, really effective in reducing toxins.
We will return right back to this interview right after this quick ad break. Do you have anything that is interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving goals? You guys know that I am a huge advocate for taking control of your mental health, and that is why I love working with BetterHelp. They will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist, and you get to connect in a safe and private online environment that is convenient for you. So whether you want to text or email or have a phone call or a video chat with your counselor, all of those are options for you depending on your comfort level. And there's no awkward waiting in an uncomfortable waiting room to see your therapist. BetterHelp has got you guys covered. They are convenient, they're professional, they're affordable, and anything that you share is always confidential. So no matter what you're struggling with, I know for me in my life right now, it's just the load of motherhood and the things that it can, the triggers that it brings up in my life. I feel like your kids are just your little mirrors walking around or crawling or just being babies, showing you all the things that you need to work on in your life. And that's why I love BetterHelp. And in fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. I want you to start living a happier life today. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/mamas. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mamas. I'm low-key having a panic attack because we bought our house a couple years ago, and like this last year I've done so much remodeling. We recarpeted it like a year before we moved in. And I was telling you before the podcast, like I hate carpet, and I know that carpet holds a lot of toxins. So like I don't let my daughter lay on it. I vacuum all the time, and I love the vacuum that shows the dust that you collect because it's so satisfying. But it's like always freaking dusty. Like it's so annoying. You could do it every day, and I'm like, there's so much dust. It's so annoying. And so I lay a blanket down on the carpet for her to lay on to play because I'm like, I can't let her play in the carpet because I feel like she's just gonna, right. Like I know I do the best I can, but I definitely can get, my husband will make fun of me because I'll freak out about things. But, we put in new windows this last year, and we did, most of the stuff we did was outside, but we did some work in our basement. So dust was constantly coming up, and it was always dusty. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably didn't dust as much as I should. I was pregnant. No. I ruined my daughter's life.
First of all, you can't change the past, so don't stress about it, because like we've all, like I think back to when I started this journey, and it was insane. I'll go mad if I think of all the things I should have, could have, didn't do. But I think, the takeaway is, so now and you do what you can. There's certain situations where you won't be able to, make these changes, or you won't be able to mitigate. And I think that if you do your part on everything else, then you can feel good about it. I mean, for example, if you know that, You generally eat, you buy organic foods when you can. If you know that maybe you already have your water purifier, filtration system, and you know that you generally avoid plastics. You're doing those three things, and maybe, the body shampoos and body washes are non-toxic. Then when something like that comes up, a situation where you can't mitigate it, you can still feel good about yourself because you've balanced it out with everything else in your life. You can't live in a bubble, and that's the reality. And so it's okay when you have moments of exposure that you're like, oh gosh, okay, this isn't ideal, but it's not going to be forever. Mm-hmm. And you're doing your best in other areas of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good and that's valid. And I think that's important because otherwise we'll all go, we'll go mad thinking of all the things we should be doing. And that's not the idea. I think it's important for me to spell out all these things and to talk about these things so that we're all aware. But it's not meant to be that you guys go home and have to do an overhaul. I mean, that's not realistic. It's taken me 10 years. I always talk about like a non-toxic, it's a journey. Mm-hmm. So it's taken me 10 years to know what I know. And now I can be like, yeah, this, these are all sources. I've been researching it for over a decade. But it's meant to be, the ideal thing for everyone is to really take it slow and kind of focus first on the things that you're using every day. And then, you kind of like go working your way around the house or through your daily routine slowly. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's the key. I think because otherwise, yes, the panic attacks and the freakouts will happen. It is scary. And, I will say that there are some good things to be talked about. And I think that, I've read, recently in the news, there's talk about a little bit more regulation going on. There's different things. There's a lot more products today that are, especially for kids, that are just safer. Children's products by law have to meet certain standards for phthalates and for heavy metals like lead. So I would say that generally speaking, kids' items tend to be safer today than they were 10 years ago, because at least these laws exist now and they're not perfect, but mm-hmm. they're definitely better. Mm-hmm. So that's the good news. Generally speaking, I think at least children items it's better today than they were, a decade ago. Mm-hmm. They're just a little bit more regulated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. Well, and I want to talk about real quick, because most of the kids stuff that we got were hand-me-downs, which was awesome. Like my sister-in-law's like saved everything and we're like, hey, you need all this stuff, just take it. So is there a benefit to getting a hand-me-down, especially with items that may off-gas, and what exactly is off-gassing?
Okay, so off-gassing is when certain chemicals will kind of evaporate in a way, right? Not really, but they kind of just like, so we usually talk about off-gassing when we talk about, for example, composite wood. So you have solid wood and then you have composite wood, otherwise known as like you can have MDF or plywood. So a lot of furniture is made of composite wood. And these items, they require like an adhesive to stick. So what composite wood is, like plywood is just like slices of wood that are glued together, right? MDF, it's little pieces of wood that are glued together. And that glue contains formaldehyde, and that formaldehyde off-gasses. It will come out, and if you're in the room with it, you'll smell it, right? So off-gassing tends to be worse immediately when the product is new. So yes, if you're buying if you have a hand-me-down piece of furniture, for example, it will have mostly off-gas. There might still be a little bit of off-gassing, but it's going to be minute. And so that means that you will be exposed to much less formaldehyde than when it was brand new. And even plastics can off-gas, like a PVC will off-gas at first. But the problem is that even if it's specifically a PVC toy, like maybe if you're using like like PVC toys are like a rubber ducky or something like that. Even if it doesn't smell like plastic, it has other plasticizers that could still be off-gassing and you're not necessarily smelling it. So off-gassing is more just for like the VOCs that are coming out that you're actually, you know, that you would be able to smell. But having said that, for example, for clothing, hand-me-down clothes tends to be much better than new clothes, you know, because clothes, which we don't really think about, but can contain chemicals. And the more you wash them, generally, depending on the chemical, the better the lower the levels of exposure. So in that sense, that's something that's better. I will say that nowadays, you just have to be careful because depending on how old those, you know, the clothes, the hand-me-downs are, a couple years back, PJs still contain flame retardant chemicals. Nowadays, most of them don't. And you'll see those. They usually have, like, if it's brand new, it has like a yellow tag that says has to be snug fitting. And that's what you want to look for because flame retardants wouldn't be washing off in the wash. But generally, hand-me-down clothing is good. And yeah, you just want to be careful. I think with the hand-me-downs, the only thing I would be careful with also is plastic toys. Because when you have a plastic toy that becomes like a clear plastic toy that becomes kind of not foggy, but, you know, it looks kind of scratched and it's not quite as transparent as it used to be when it was new, that's usually the plastic is just like deteriorating and maybe increasing, you know, a plastic toy that was very stable, maybe now isn't because maybe it's been exposed to the sun, etc. But you know, wooden toys are great to be used as hand-me-downs, and they last forever. Anything that's fabric, like a play mat, could be good if you have like a fabric play mat. So yeah, you know, hand-me-downs are great, but yeah, depending on what you're using. Yeah, but off-gassing is that. It's basically when you'll smell it, you know, and that's a good indicator that that the chemicals have decreased.
Yeah, like the new car smell when you get a new car, those are full of chemicals.
Yes. Well, cars in general are full of chemicals. They're terrible. But yes, the new car smell, and even like if you go to the car wash, you know, and they do like a hand wash, you know, a lot of times they're using these like really nasty products and you'll smell them. You know, I always think like your nose is a great indicator of toxins. You know, if you smell something very strong, chances are you're smelling something that probably contains a chemical that you shouldn't be smelling that isn't really good for your health.
I'd love your suggestions for just kind of going back to scents, how like, you know, things that have fragrance and perfume in them are endocrine disruptors and have chemicals. Because I love candles, but I've thrown like those out. And is there like a good clean brand to use that you can make your house smell good with?
Yes, definitely there are. And there's some really great ones coming out. I know that there's a couple of brands, but I know Fontana Candles is one brand. There's a certification called Made Safe Certified. And I think, you know, it's a great, they basically certify, they're really strict. They have very strict requirements to become Made Safe Certified. And they have a big, broad variety of products that can be Made Safe Certified. So from beauty products to mattresses to candles to bed sheets. So anyways, Fontana Candles are one, and they're Made Safe Certified. Usually with candles, what you want to look for is for them, you prefer beeswax or GMO-free soy wax are good alternatives. And you just want to avoid, you know, you want to ask that if it smells like something, you want to make sure that what they're using are like pure organic essential oils and not synthetic fragrances. And that's the key, basically. There's a couple other companies. I'm going to try to see if I can get them for you guys. Oh, here we go. Because I do have a list of my favorite. There's a company called Safe Scent Shop and another one called Good Burn Candle. And those are small, women-owned. I mean, it's mom-owned and companies. One of them sells, I know, in Etsy. And they're making really good stuff.
Okay, so what are maybe, because we went over like the major things like, you know, maybe water or cookware. Is there something else in the home that you might need to be aware of that you wouldn't think of?
I think that, yes, definitely. I think that one of the things, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but one of the things that people are most surprised about is that our home dust is such a major source of toxin exposure. And especially when you have young children, you know, little kids, from you were mentioning, you put your daughter on the floor, even though it's on but she's touching the floor. When they become mobile and they start crawling around, they're touching everything, and they place everything in their mouth, right? That's natural. That's what little kids do. So kids tend to be more, just more exposed to chemicals in dust. And, all our dust contains phthalates, contains flame retardants, because flame retardants are also used in electronics. And all these chemicals are migrating into the dust. So I think that, that's one of the most important things that we have to focus on in our house. And I think traditionally people who speak about non-toxic living haven't really touched that much on dust. You know, you tend to hear about like beauty, personal care products, and maybe kitchen items that we covered. But I do think that it's, people are surprised when they start looking into dust, and it's such a huge, huge, huge source of toxins. So I would say that that's definitely one of them. And I'm trying to think, there's just so many things. But, you know what? Like also we mentioned it, but like upholstery. And that's actually something that you're probably not going to be able to change your upholstery overnight. It's not practical to tell everyone, okay, throw out your sofas, get new ones, right? But when the time comes to buy a new sofa, or when the time comes to buy a new chair, or if you're buying your child's transitioning to like a big kid bed, maybe avoid the upholstery, go with the solid wood. Or if you're going with the upholstery, just make sure that company that you're buying it from offers flame retardant free, because a lot of upholstery, furniture contains flame retardants, and B, no performance fabric. And that's scary for a lot of parents, because they're like, wait a minute, how am I going to wash my sofa if it doesn't have performance fabric? And that's something to consider. There's alternatives. Sometimes you can have what are those called? Like
the covers.
I'm blanking out. Yeah, just and like nowadays they make covers that are that you could just take out and wash. And they have some really modern ones that don't look as bulky as the older ones that maybe you've seen. But these are all things to consider, because they are sources of these chemicals that are definitely do accumulate in us, and especially in little kids. And I mean, I don't know if you want to get into like EMF, but that's just kind of like the radiation that comes from cell phones and from Wi-Fi routers and anything basically electric. There's different types of EMF, electromagnetic radiation. But the only thing that I would say specific to parents is that the key would be, if you have a monitor in your child's room, just keep it at least 6 feet away. Don't put it right on the crib, because EMF will reduce with distance. So even when you're sleeping, you shouldn't have your cell phone with the Wi-Fi on all night right next to your bed. What I do, I usually just leave it. If I'm going to leave it on, I'll leave it in my bathroom, which isn't too far away. So if there's an emergency and someone needs to call, it's on. Or I just turn it off and put it in airplane mode, but still keep it a couple feet away from my bed. Mm-hmm. And you can also turn your Wi-Fi router off at night, which is another thing. You can actually do it online, and it's pretty easy with whatever company you use. You have to play around with the settings, but you can do like an automatic just like an automatic alarm. Not alarm, it just turns off automatically, like switch. You could say, I want it off at 11 p.m. and back on at 5 a.m. And then that just reduces your exposure to EMF. The reason that EMF can be dangerous, and once again, this is just like over the long run, is that it can disturb your sleep. When we sleep, our body's detoxifying. So, and it's something that we're exposed to every day because we live in a connected, society. Obviously, there's Wi-Fi everywhere. So giving your body kind of a break, especially at night, is good, especially for kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say those are like the three things that maybe not everyone thinks about at home, but can be sources of environmental toxins and just things you want to avoid that are actually relatively easy to decrease.
Yeah. When you were saying, that dust is one of them, what I was thinking of, if you dust often, and most people are like, okay, so I'm going to go grab my dust cleaner and dust.
Yeah. No.
What's the best thing to dust with?
Yes. So you definitely want to be dusting, first of all, with a damp cloth. That's the idea. If it's dry, if it's one of those dusters, like feathered dusters, you're just pushing like the dust all around and it's not really helping at all. You want to make sure that your vacuum cleaner has like a HEPA filter, and that's key because otherwise the same thing. If the vacuum cleaner does not have a HEPA filter, the dust is coming in and it's coming right back out or a portion of it will. So you want to make sure that the HEPA filter, it'll just like grab the dust and make sure nothing comes out, until you empty it, obviously. And yeah, just with those two things, damp cloth and a HEPA vacuum, you're good. That's there's also something that can be helpful especially for parents or just anyone who's busy, is that there's like those like automatic, those like iRobot type thing vacuums. They're not as potent as like a bigger HEPA filter vacuum, but they do have a HEPA filter and they could just make your life easier because you could just leave them running. At least, most of the days. You could do that every day, leave it running, and then you follow up with like the bigger vacuum, especially if you have carpets.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely those two things for dust.
Yeah. With cleaners though, so there's such a huge market for all of these, cleaners. Maybe they say toxin free or something on them. I don't even know. But, there's so much greenwashing. So for people listening, like greenwashing is basically when you read something that says gluten free or all natural. And it's like, well, crap is all natural, but I don't want to eat it, like, or what cracks me up is when it's like a can of peanuts. It's like gluten free. And it's like, why would there be gluten in this? Like, why? Right. So it's just making it look.
Label just mislead you. Yes.
Right. And I know that that's the same for cleaners.
Yes. That happens a lot with cleaners. And there's a lot of brands that come to mind that we all find in supermarkets that use labels like you're saying, like non-toxic, even organic, all natural. And the thing that you have to remember is that, especially for cleaners, these labels aren't regulated. So you can basically label anything, put anything on the label, and you're good as a company. But it's misleading, and it's meant to sell you something that you think is going to be healthy and non-toxic, but it's not. So ideally you need to start looking at the ingredient list. But the catch is that in certain states, now things are changing in New York and California soon. Cleaning companies are going to be required that they have to post their ingredient list. But until now, that wasn't a requirement. So, the consumer was left, well, how do I know if this is clean or not? How do I know what the ingredients are? Because these companies don't have to put them on the label. So traditionally, and this is also something that you can do that is super cheap and super healthy, you can just clean, make your own cleaners with 50% vinegar, 50% water. That's an all-purpose cleaner. It will clean. You can use it almost everywhere. It's like an all-purpose cleaner. And I've been using that for years, and it works. It's just white distilled vinegar. If you don't like the smell, the vinegar smell will dissipate really quickly. But if you don't like it, you can always add a couple of drops of essential oil, of an organic, natural essential oil, and that can help. And similarly, you could use like baking soda as like a scrubber, and you can use that in sinks, in your kitchen sink, in the bathtub. And then there's companies nowadays, actually, in the last 10 years, it's been amazing how this has shifted, because 10 years ago, there wasn't anything that you could use to clean your house if it wasn't handmade, homemade. That was really non-toxic. Nowadays, we have companies like Branch Basics, Humble Suds, and they're all making really good products. Forces of Nature is another one that truly clean, and they are truly non-toxic. But there's not that many of them. They exist. These three are probably the better ones. Bon Ami is also, it's similar to like an Ajax, which you don't want to be using, but the Bon Ami is super cheap, widely available. You can always find it like in a Target, and super non-toxic too if you need like a scrubber. But yeah, you have to be careful, because when you're buying, and laundry detergents is another one they're just known for their greenwashing, and they've been doing it for years. These companies have been doing it for years, and you get exposed to a lot of toxins in your laundry, or you can be. You want to avoid those softeners. The other day I was watching, actually, I was watching TV, and I was during the day, which I never really do, and I was kind of amazed at how many commercials for like those like colorful gel pods that you use to clean, like detergent pods. I don't know if they were Tide or whatever, but the point is that it was one commercial after the other, after the other, after the other. And, these detergents are filled with fragrance chemicals. They're filled with a lot of chemicals. They can have, they can release 1,4-dioxin, which is a carcinogen. So once again, companies, you have to do your research, but companies like Branch Basics, like Humble Suds, Meliora is another one that you could look into, which has detergents and like laundry detergents. And these are great, safe options for the whole family. I also want to mention, maybe we've mentioned it before, but EWG, the Environmental Working Group, is an organization, and they do a lot of research on toxins, and they have these wonderful databases for cleaners, for personal care products also, and they have a couple of other ones. And they're just a great tool that, you could always look up any given cleaning product that you find in the store. If you're not really sure, is this good, is it not? You can go to the EWG database, and you just like plug in the name of the company of the product that you're looking at. And most of them have been rated by them. And they'll give you a rating, and you'll see, if it's clean, or if, non-toxic, or if it has like an F rating that you want to avoid. And so that's another great tool that you can use. I sometimes use it also too. Mm-hmm. Super helpful. Yeah.
So basically, because I think a lot of people feel, and I do too, sometimes making those changes means spending a lot more money on other things, which can be hard, and it's not accessible to everybody. But, if you can clean with half vinegar and half water, and it's great. There was a study, and I can't think of it now, where it showed that actually was cleaned more than Lysol wipes.
Yeah. Also Lysol wipes, what they're doing is it's killing maybe, the bacteria, but it's not really, so it's, I'm blanking on the word, but it's not necessarily, there's a difference between disinfecting and cleaning. And what you want to be doing for the most part, it's cleaning. And soap and water will clean well. You don't need antibacterial spring water. You don't need Lysol with this antibacterial property. The vinegar actually works equally well. Obviously, if we're talking about something like in the last couple of months, we were all talking about COVID and how do you kill COVID? Well, vinegar is not going to kill the COVID, definitely. But for everyday wash at home, you don't need that strong stuff. And even then, you don't need that strong stuff because there are better options than using bleach to kill. Like even if there's like a stomach virus in your house, you can use something like Forces of Nature, which just doesn't use a bleach. It doesn't use these just really harmful, strong chemicals. It just uses more mild chemicals that are just more natural, and they're healthy for everyone. And they're still effective. Forces of Nature is an EPA certified to kill COVID, for example. So, it's effective. It's just more natural. And I don't use that for everything, but white vinegar and water will clean everything at home that you need to clean on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So cheap.
Yeah.
So cheap. You'll be saving a lot of money there for sure.
So
yeah.
No, I was just going to say, open your windows, dust, vacuum, and if you can, get a water filter.
That's the takeaway. And take your shoes off when you get home. I think that generally just the takeaway is start slow. Don't get overwhelmed. Maybe make yourself a plan. Say, well, what are the things that I'm using every single day? And let's focus on those, or focus on one room at a time and kind of go slowly. I do have, like my website and my Instagram have lots of information, not only on products that I recommend and that I personally use and recommend and I've looked into, but just on daily tips. My focus usually is on providing the information, which can be scary, but also always providing solutions, So here's the scary information. This is what science is telling us, but here's what you can do. And hopefully that's helpful too, because it can be, I think at the beginning, it can be overwhelming, but as I'm sure also, because you've been doing this for a while, it becomes easier. It becomes like second nature. At some point, it just becomes obvious second nature, no big deal. And that's when you move on to the next thing. That's the key.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it's like, okay, so I live outside Chicago. It's been freezing here. So we haven't opened our windows in forever. And my husband yesterday was like, we need to open the windows because today it's like almost 40 degrees out. So we're like, woo, sunshine, almost tank top weather here. So, yeah. So, I think it's also just realizing do what you can because so much is out of your control and we're exposed to so much in the environment that is out of our control, whether it's at our job or just walking outside, using your car, just breathing in the air, whatever it is. You're exposed to so many different toxins. So it's just, what can I control? What's in my home? What's a small change that I can make that could potentially make a difference in my family's health? So it doesn't have to be like a huge thing. And it, like you said, just kind of going to water and vinegar and making sure that you're dusting really well, if that's like one thing that you can do, because it is overwhelming. And it is like, I've even felt like I said, I get so crazy about some of it that I'm like, we haven't opened our windows in forever. We haven't really been outside because it was like 7 degrees for 2 weeks here. And I'm like, Jovi's going to have all these toxins in her body and I'm ruining her life. And I just have to remind myself that I'm not. Hopefully.
Our bodies are designed to detoxify. I mean, I think that's something that we didn't mention, but it's important. If you eat healthy and balanced, our bodies are really good at detoxifying most things. It's just when it's too much that it has a hard time, right? When we just like abuse. So by just maybe eliminating 2 or 3 things from your everyday routine, you're already helping. Like every little small step makes a big difference. So, and the rest of the time, our body's probably going to be able to handle it. So, that's something that's worth, reminding ourselves, our bodies can detoxify. You just want to help it, not to be like overburdened. So that's the key, just do what you can. If it's 7 degrees outside, there's no way you can go open the windows. I mean, that's the reality, and that's okay, but you're eating healthy and maybe you're dusting.
Yeah.
And
right.
then that's, that's good. You're indoors.
I know. Well, I hadn't actually like even been to a store really with her. And then this last week I had to make an Amazon return, and you can drop them off at Kohl's for free. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring Jovi and just walk around the store because I haven't been out of the house in like 6 months. So, I just needed to get out a little bit. And they moved the Amazon return to a different area, and it's right by all the candles, and it smelled so strong. And even then I was freaking out. I'm like, Jovi, don't breathe in this air. Like, if somebody comes over and has a bunch of perfume on, I'm like, no, you can't hold my daughter. Like, I'm going to be a psycho. I just know it.
Balance. Those are really good. I mean, that's normal. That's normal for you to think that way, but it's really, that's not going to harm her. That quick exposure will not harm her. Like, it's really the long-term effects.
Yeah.
So,
But I've also noticed, like, since I've eliminated, I stopped using perfume a couple years ago. My favorite perfume, which I do miss, but even now I actually started getting sick wearing it, like headaches and stuff. I couldn't even wear it anymore. And I used to love the way like Bath and Body Works smelled. And now if I go buy anything that has that smell, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. Like I can't do it.
Yeah, you get like a stomach ache. I get a stomach ache. Yes. Yes. It's crazy how our bodies immediately get used to not smelling it, right? And and there's an actual, for some people who are more sensitive, you get an actual like physical reaction. There's people who are chemically sensitive and they will get the stomach ache. They will, and that's the toxins affecting your body. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. I can't go, like, if I have to walk through like a department store, like the cosmetic area that always smells a lot like the perfume, I will get a stomach ache. It's rough. It's crazy. But it also kind of, it's a reminder, right? That your body isn't meant to be smelling that stuff.
Yeah. It's hard. I feel like my body just changed like after I eliminated all of that. But again, there's only so much you can control. Quick, before we wrap up, is there a way that people can make a easy hand soap that isn't full of chemicals? Because I know like Bath and Body is a popular one. It smells good. They have the seasonal stuff, but it also has a lot of harsh things in it. I know that Castile soap in water.
Castile soap is great.
Yeah. Yes. So, and that's, if you buy a big thing, it can go like a really long ways.
Right. Because the Castile soap can be expensive. When you buy it, it's pure and it's very concentrated. I like Dr. Bronner's, and they actually smell really nice. They have great scents that are all essential oil based, natural essential oils. So you can mix that with water. The only thing I would make sure is that I would boil the water first, and that'll make it last a little bit longer because you're not adding any kind of preservative or anything. So you don't want any bacteria or anything to build up. And I would try to use it within 2 weeks. And if not, just make a new batch or just make less next time. But that's a really easy way. You can get like a foam dispenser on Amazon or in a local store, and you can put it in there. And that's perfect. Yeah. And also, I know a lot of people don't like using bar soaps, but bar soaps without, there's Castile soap. It's also bar soap. And I don't know why, but it costs less than the liquid soap. And that's something else you could also be using just for your hand washing every day. And I'll just add that hand washing every day is really important. That's one of the best ways, especially with little kids who are always putting their hands in their mouth, to reduce toxin exposure. You don't want to do it obsessively. But when you're done, when you go to the park and you're done and you get home, wash your hands, start that habit. Every time the kids get home, if they're out and about, especially like school age kids or kids who are going to the playground when it's not 7 degrees out, wash hands before you're eating, wash your hands. And that's a super cheap, important way actually to reduce toxins exposure in kids, especially.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. If people want to find and follow you or work with you, where's the best place to connect with you at?
So Instagram, at Non-Toxic Munchkin is the best way. And I also have my website, which is nontoxicmunchkin.com. And you can contact me through there. And yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions and anything.
Yeah. And you have amazing blogs on there too. I remember when I was making my baby registry and stuff, I would go to your website and look up different items and things to use. Cause
thank you.
I'm like, what can I get?
Also have like, I try to, because people always asking me, you know, what do you use? So I do have an area in the website, which is like, it's shop and it's my favorites. And also has like an Amazon shop if you like Amazon. So, you know, you can buy through there, or you can just get inspired and, you know, buy at your favorite local store. But those are all items that I have looked into and I trust, and most of them I use. So, that's another source. If you just need, I know a lot of people just, you know, are always like, Aida, like, just tell me what to use. I don't want to hear the science. It's going to overwhelm me. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So what to use. And so that's another option for you too, always.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your knowledge and information with us. I'm going to try not to have a panic attack and burn my house down.
No.
You know. I'm like, we just bought curtains.
And if you feel it coming, contact me, email me, text me.
I just bought curtains and they're full of toxins and just ruining my house.
No, you know what? I will say that I think if it's any mother or parent or person who's even listening to this conversation, I bet that they're doing a great job. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Already. They're probably already doing much more than they even realize it. So the kids are going to be fine and you're all going to be fine. And, you know, just start small. I think that's, you know, if you can take one thing away from here, small changes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, learning all about the toxins in our life. And again, I mean, the major things that we can do are free and easy and will help eliminate those toxins for us and our children. And I know that I have to work on dusting and vacuuming more because I got to hand it to all the moms out there who love to clean. That is just not my forte. But this interview actually motivated me to want to keep our house really clean, just to help eliminate all those things collecting in the dust around the house and the toxins that can be released. So I got to up my dusting and vacuuming game. And I hope that you guys check out some of those products. Make sure you look at her Instagram. She always has amazing suggestions on there. So that's a great resource if you guys want to dive a little bit deeper into non-toxic living. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure that you check us out on Instagram, join our Facebook group, and if you're listening, leave us a rating and review and share this podcast with somebody who you know would find some value in it. I'm super excited for the guests that I have lined up this year. I have a few interviews that I've done that I'm just so excited to share with you guys, and just keep adding to that list. So make sure that you reach out to me, let me know what topics you want to discuss and who you want on, and we will do our best to make that happen. I hope you have a great week. Oh yeah, and happy Women's History Month to everyone out there listening. And I love you guys. Hope you have a great week. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.